Retro Quickies. AD&D Hillsfar.
So, full confession time. When I first recorded footage of this game, it was basically in a marathon with all the other AD&D games for the NES. While that worked for games like Dragon Strike and Heroes of the Lance, I didn't really have the patience for games that were a bit more traditionally like adventure or RPG games at the time. Much to my embarrassment, my original recording footage of Hillsfar is about an hour and a half of me wandering around trying to figure out what in the world I was meant to do in the city. And, even more embarrassingly, I tried to write out a video script based on that. I was not happy with it or myself, so I set it aside. I read an actual guide on the game to at least see if I could figure out the basics of the game and how it was meant to be played, and I decided to go back and redo everything. And you know what? I was actually able to make a lot more progress in the game after looking up the basic gameplay loop. I was able to sample basically everything that this game has to offer. And while this has led me to appreciating the game a lot more, I still don't think that I like it very much. The NES version of Hillsfar, the one I'm playing for this video, was developed by Crosstalk and published by FCI, and is based off of a city located in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons universe. While the game was apparently very successful, it did receive pretty mixed reviews, and it's not hard to see why. Because, while it superficially throws in elements of D&D, this entire game is more like a burglary simulator. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The game starts with you creating a character. You can create multiple characters, but you can only have one loaded in at a time. There is no party system here, you are a lone wolf. A lot of the options here are kinda superficial. Your alignment, for example. I never saw any sort of difference in the game based on the alignment that you chose. Your race affects what classes you can choose, basically locking you out of certain story and quest lines. For example, if you're playing a dwarf, you can't be a magic user at all. There are also multi-class options for certain races, with the half-elf getting the widest breadth of options, aside from the bare-bones human. Multi-classing does give you access to both class quest lines, which can give a single character more to do, but really it doesn't matter much because a fighter-thief is going to have the exact same quests as a regular fighter or thief, and their story is going to play out exactly the same. Lastly, you choose your stats, and this is one of the worst parts of the game. Almost all of these stats, worthless, honestly. The only stats that are really going to matter much to you, regardless of your class, are your constitution and your strength. Constitution will affect how many hit points you start with, so a high con is important for any character. You're still going to have a very small pool if you choose to play as a mage, because magic users are always cursed with absurd squishiness. And the other one is strength, and we'll get into why in a sec. With your character made, you can set out on your adventure, first heading out to the city of Hillsfar. Okay, this might be a bit rough. We'll get into this in a second. Anyway, when you actually get to Hillsfar, here's how you typically progress in this game. You wander around the town until you find the guild associated with your class and speak to the master there, who will initiate your first quest. You then go and do what it is he asked of you, follow the breadcrumbs for the multi-part quests, and then return to the guild after you've successfully completed the quest for your payout, and then start it all over again. You do this 3 times or so for 3 large quests, and then you're done. Congrats, you are now a retired adventurer, and you literally can't do anything else other than just futz about until you end up dead. And this is where things really start to fall apart here, because while this does have the D&D license and it takes place in a D&D setting, it tries its best to be some sort of facsimile of D&D, but it really doesn't do much to make you feel like you're on that big of a grand adventure, or that there's any sort of escalation of stakes, regardless of which class you're playing as. The quests you're given are always different depending on the class, but how you perform them is pretty much always the same. You're told exactly where to go, and in the rare instance you aren't, generally you're told to use the search function, either in general or near a specific location. If they tell you to go to the archery range, you go there and get a high score. If they tell you to go to a magic shop or a healer, you go there. If you're told to go to a specific tavern, go there. But this is where our first big issue with the game comes in. Navigating around Hillsfar feels pretty awful. You move really slowly around the town, and you only move slower whenever you pass by buildings because a text prompt will show up now and then telling you if there's a building that you can enter on either side of you or in front of you. While you can kind of suss out which buildings are important given their look or their location on the map, this isn't always the case, as many of the buildings all just look the same. So if you're looking for a specific place, like, oh, I don't know, the frickin' guild building, you better know where the hell it is, or you'll be wandering around all over trying to find it. And then there's the matter of the taverns. There are 4 of them scattered throughout the town, each located in a different part of the city, each with a unique name. But they aren't named when you come across them on the map, they're just called Tavern, and you're only told the name after you walk in. So if a request requires you to, say, go to the Rat's Nest Tavern, and you don't know where that is, you'll be wandering around the city looking for taverns, not knowing which one is the right one. Whoops, that's the Hydra's Den. Oh, wait, that's the Bugbear's Cave. Thankfully, this is mitigated by the fact that the map itself is always static, no matter what you're playing as, so once you memorize the locations of these buildings, they're always in the same place. But getting to that point can be very frustrating. Other places are more obvious, like the arena for example, but other important areas within Hillsfar are pretty nondescript. Oh, and the city runs on a clock too. Time will pass, very slowly, as you will wander around outside, and some buildings or businesses will not be open during certain times of the day. So if you're in a situation where you have to enter a building for a quest but it's closed, you have to walk all the way back to your guild, which by the way, could be all the way across the city if you're unlucky, and choose to rest there. Resting is the only way to pass the time, but you rest in random increments. So if you need to be at a certain place at a very specific time, you have to hope that while resting you don't accidentally overshoot your target time. Other times you'll be asked to visit places outside of Hillsfar, and you do that by going back to the stables where you first arrived, grabbing a horse, and riding out of town, and this is where we get to the worst part of the game, by far, traveling the world map. Credit where it's due, the map itself is very easy to understand and it's pretty obvious where everything is, unlike Hillsfar. If you're told to go to the shipwreck, it's right there. A few of the locations can be confusing the first time, like the hermit's home and the forest hut, but then again, the map is completely static, so it's easy to remember where everything is. You'll also run into situations where the path forward is marked by a question mark, basically meaning that there isn't a straight path there, but just selecting a question mark while you're near the destination will usually get you there, though you can also end up on a path back to places like Hillsfar or the trading post by accident. But this is where you have to ride the horse and then it gets really bad. Controlling the horse feels awful. There is a massive delay every time you press a button, to the point where the game will not even react if you just tap the button. You have to hold it down. At first, once you learn to press the button well in advance of an obstacle, clearing jumps actually isn't that bad. But as the quest lines progress, you not only have to deal with more obstacles in a row, which is basically impossible to avoid crashing out on, but you also have to duck under arrows and birds that will knock you off your horse too. And you'll often be put in situations where you can't avoid damage because a bird is flying over an obstacle you have to jump over. Crashing is bad because not only does it cost you hit points, the only way you'll be taking significant damage while playing this game, by the way, but every time you crash, there is an ever-increasing chance during your ride that your horse will spook and run off, leaving you stranded. And basically, anything you do at this point will result in you being captured by bandits, which will cost you even more hit points, or potentially half your gold. At this point, you have to make your way back to the trading post and buy a brand new horse. And the horse's name is indicative of their quality, by the way. You could end up with someone like Pokey, who can't run very fast and consequently can't jump very far or very high either. Legitimately the worst part of the game. But what about when you reach your destination, or have found a location you have to visit in town? Well, that's where the majority of your time in the game is going to be spent, wandering around and looting the place. When you enter an area, a timer will start counting down, and your job is to wander around the area, grab as much treasure as you can, hopefully grab what you're looking for the quest, and then when the exit appears, get through it before the guards catch you. The guards can't hurt you, but bumping into them drains the timer faster, and if they bump into you while the timer runs out, they catch you. Most of the time, all that happens is they throw you out of the area, but they can also toss you into the arena for a fight. But most of the time, getting thrown out is mostly an inconvenience. You also can't just leave the way you came in. You have to wait for the timer to tick down enough for the guards to spawn in alongside the exit. During your exploration, you'll come across chests. If you're in an area with a quest item or NPC, you'll usually run into them early on in your exploration and be given what you need to progress, but you still need to wait until the game tells you that you can leave. So why not pick up more treasure on your way? Most of the other chests you'll come across, and oftentimes the door in the area you want to explore, will be locked, and this is where the strength thing I mentioned earlier comes in. You have a very short time limit to try and get the locked door or chest open, and you're given a lot of options to do so. You can use a one-time knock ring to open it. You can improvise a lockpick if you have something on hand for it. If you're a thief, you're provided with actual lock pits that let you play a simple pattern matching game to unlock the tumblers. However, the best and most efficient way to get through locks in this game is just to brute force them. If your strength is high enough, you can just rip the thing open. And while this does run the risk of activating a trap that can cause a small amount of damage, or more annoyingly, leave you sleeping for several seconds, it ultimately is the quickest, most convenient way to get through any lock standing in your way. Lock picking with an object I've never gotten to work once. You generally don't want to use knock rings because you can only use them once and they're very expensive, especially early on. The Thief's lockpicking game, by the way, absolutely annoying and grating, and it feels like it takes forever. You're given so many different picks, each having two different sides that you have to flip between, and if you mess up, your picks can break, rendering them useless, and meaning you can't unlock anything that has a pattern that requires a broken pick, and you're required to replace or repair them. For a fee, of course. Oh, and playing as a mage, you don't even get to use magic. There are no spells for you to cast in this game. There are no spells in a D&D game. Thus, there is no point to really trying to roleplay your class. No matter what you're playing, the best thing to be is a beefcake, because it is the quickest and easiest way to get through. And trying to actually play as an intelligent mage or a dexterous thief, I wouldn't mind if their options for getting through obstacles were more interesting or fun, but they're not. They're slow, they're annoying, and more often than not, they feel like a waste of time and resources. You might have also noticed that there's another big part of the D&D experience that's been missing this entire time, and that's combat. You don't actually fight anyone in this game unless you're going into the arena. Now at first, I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do here, but it's actually pretty simple, it turns out. Moving left and right will dodge you in that direction. Holding the A button and hitting left and right will swing your weapon in that direction. Down is a special move. I never used it because first, this mode has the same level of delay as trying to ride the horse, but thankfully it's very easy to just spam attack in one direction or the other, and you'll take down your foe without issue. But that is the only time you actually get any combat in this game. And other than going there for a fighter's quest, it is completely optional. I find it very telling that the arena is more of a punishment than anything else, as you're sent there when you're caught by the guards sometimes, and there's this random event where a jerk of a wizard will stop you on the street and ask you if you want to see a magic trick. And sometimes, he'll just send you to the arena and you have to fight your way out. It's very weird. And that's why I say this is a burglary simulator, because all you're doing is breaking into areas you aren't supposed to be in and stealing stuff. In fact, if you find yourself in dire need of cash, this is basically the only way for you to get any money. Break into random people's houses and grab as much gold as you can before you get caught. Even if you want to be a purely good or evil character, you can't, because the quests basically assume that you are playing as a good person, and making the evil or selfish choice can actually soft lock you out of being able to complete the quest line, like turning an innocent man into the guards for the reward money, for example. If you want your story to end there, you can totally do it, but it feels really anticlimactic, and it basically means that you just can't see your character's journey through to its end. The game also isn't much of a looker either. Hillsfar is a bit of a blob of a map with very basic muted colors. Your avatar doesn't change much except for their color during the horse riding scene, and I believe that's based on your class, as they have the same base body, so even if you're playing something like a gnome or a halfling, you're just as tall as an elf or a human. The maze areas themselves are also basically a single color with a single repeating wall or floor texture, if even that, though at least these maps aren't randomly generated, only the location of the treasures, traps, and exit are. The world map at least looks appealing though, and honestly the horse riding sequence, as frustrating as it is fairly nice to look at for a time. You'll definitely be admiring it a lot while you're trying to pull yourself back onto your horse. There's also a very scant amount of music in this game, mostly reserved for scenes while you're in a tavern or guild, and they're mostly just very short loops. Not bad compositions, but not really something you'd want to listen to for very long. Other than that, most of the time, it's the shuffling of feet or the clopping of hooves that you'll be hearing. With all of that being said, was there anything that I enjoyed about this game? Well, backing up and looking at it on the macro scale, I do like the idea behind it. While a lot of your choices are superfluous, I like the idea of your class and therefore the folk that you'd associate with determining the quests that you're being given. While the way you handle the quests are always the same in terms of gameplay, the reason for going there are different, so a different story is being told each time. There's also something to be said for the fact that the game doesn't really have any sort of overarching story or villain. You do foil evil schemes, yes, but for the most part, you are playing the part of a low-level adventurer who is essentially just trying to earn a small living, not save the world. So it has relatively lower stakes compared to other games of this type, which is kind of interesting. It still makes it very strange when the game basically tells you that you're done after only 3 major quests per character class. I mean, you can't even go and just raid places for money afterwards. All the chests you open just tell you you are now retired, famous, and wealthy as an adventurer, and that's it. I get what this game is going for, but every aspect of it has aged incredibly poorly. And really, there isn't a whole lot here to engage the player. You really just feel like you're going through the motions with this game, and with how little risk of failure there is, I didn't die once during my playthrough of this game, it doesn't even really give you the crucial dopamine hit for succeeding because the stakes are so low and the challenge is non-existent. So yeah, can definitely say that I did not enjoy this one, sorry to say. Still, I am really glad that I actually did give the game a fair shake and figured out what I was supposed to do. Look at how much material there was to talk about in the end. This video is definitely stretching the idea of what a quickie even is with how long it is. But I guess it just goes to show that I really like it when a game at least gives me stuff to talk about, whether I find it good or bad. And in the end, I'd say that makes us all winners. Except me, because I still had to play this shit.